So when I was younger, I got really into doll customization videos, and I still like to watch them. Back when I first found them, I tried to get into the hobby, but I got too overwhelmed. However, now I'm old and I have this insatiable need to get as many hobbies as possible. So I tried doing it again, and after having made 2 customizations that I was happy about, I decided I wanted to try to do some fan art. The character I decided to try and make is Rosé for Drawtectives because I really like drawfee, so do I actually need a reason to do it? Do I need a better reason? I think I can do what I want. The first thing I had to do was to find a doll. I chose this Clear Denial doll because the 2 character skin colors actually match pretty well, which is nice to have in a base. I washed the doll and I got water on my phone doing this. It turned out fine, but if you are ever filming yourself cleaning something, just remember that that can happen. And maybe it will. After cleaning, I removed the hair. This left little pieces of hair everywhere, but I managed to get it cleaned up. So the thing about using Cleo as a base, at least the ones I have, is that she has these sculpted on details on her body. Now these are cool, but Rosé doesn't have bandages all over her, so I thought I would just sand them away. However, when I first wanted to do this, it was really cold. It had snowed, there was snow everywhere, I did not want to stand outside, and sand. And I didn't want to do it inside because obviously I don't want to inhale like a bunch of plastic. To just do something else in the meanwhile, I decided to add some Milliput to fill in some of the sculpting on the body. Because I thought then I had to maybe sand a little less. This didn't really turn out to be the case, but oh well. I know that you have to use different grade of sandpaper, but even though I used 2 different ones, I guess the grain wasn't fine enough, because after trying to match the color of the skin and painting over everything, it looked really bad. Like, I straight up thought about just throwing the doll away at this point and getting another body, but then I realized, hey, she has to wear clothes anyway, so who cares? And also, it's my doll. If I can live with it, then so be it. So I moved on to something that I feel a little more comfortable with. I had already added some matte varnish on the face after having removed the original face up. I then used some watercolor pencils to make a sketch of the different features which they have. I also used pastels to add some blush and a little color to the lips. I know that there's not actually really blush on as a part of Rosé's normal design, but I think it's really fun to add, so I did it. I then added some more varnish and started on a layer using acrylic paints. I first used a dark, like brown gray color to draw the features, and then I used some white to fill in the eyes and to draw on her little scar. After finishing the face up, I used matte varnish again to seal everything in. Now let's move on to the hair. So I made hair wefts by looking in my mountain of yarn and taking some, separating it into pieces, and then using a pet brush to brush it out. I also used a straightener to straighten it a bit. I then used Uhu glue to make the wefts by gluing at the top. You can probably use other glues, but Uhu glue is pretty good. It just smells really, really bad because of the acetone in it. Then I glued the wefts on. I started with the pots and the hairline. A good way to make the hairline when using wefts like this is to glue the wefts on the opposite way of that you want it to go, because then the parts look nice when you flip them over. When I started filling everything in, I kept trying to see how it would look in the actual hairstyle, to see where I should add more wefts. I cut her bangs shorter because they needed to be shorter, but I also used the stuff I cut up to give her little hair tufts at the side of her face. Then I started on her short hair, which was really difficult because I couldn't really make wefts. I just had to glue parts of it on, but I think it turned out okay. I put the hair up into space buns, and I didn't really know how to tame her bangs. The thing I ended up doing was using a elastic to hold the bangs in place, and then just splicing everything with a hairdryer, and that actually worked, and her hair is still in that position pretty much, so I guess that's a way to do it. Now let's talk about the clothes. For the clothes I made 2 dupes. I made a tube for the top and a tube for the bottom. These were both made out of stretchy fabric, although the fabric for the skirt wasn't as stretchy as I thought. So I had to make it bigger so that it could actually fit, but that also meant that then it didn't fit around the waist. So to fix that, I just added a button in the back. The shirt is a little more complicated. I basically just made a tube that had holes for the arms and the neck. In this scale, this way of doing it basically just made a turtleneck without me really having to do anything. If this had been a human size shirt, I don't think it would have looked convincing. And I did also end up adding a few stitches to the side of the neck, just to make it sit better. The shirt was still not sitting well, so even though you can't really see Rosé's sleeves, or even if she has them, I actually don't know, I decided to add sleeves to make it sit better. So I did that. Then I had a shirt, so now I needed to make the jacket. I made the jacket using non-stretchy fabric. I used some tape to make a little pattern and cut it out. Because of the scale, I find hemming really difficult actually, so I just decided to line it by making 2 of the same thing and then sewing them together. Which left me with a creature, but when I had turned anything the way it should be, I then had to make her little hood thing. I don't actually know if it's supposed to be a hood, I don't remember, but I knew I wasn't gonna make a functional hood, so I just made 2 half circles and sewed them together, and then I sewed them onto the jacket using, I think, a ladder stitch. For the little fur part, I got some of my yarn again, and I crocheted some of it using a chain stitch, just because I wanted it to be a little thicker at some parts, and then I sewed that on to the half circles. I then had to make shoes. This was really difficult. I made 2 bases using polymer clay that I painted black. I then used tape to make a pattern of the feet and cut that out and sew it together. I didn't like how the shoes looked, so I added more details by adding like basically a rectangle in the front of the top front and painting the backs red and adding little dots that I think are supposed to be buttons. I also added like half circles in the front to make like the front bulky. At some point I also painted socks on her and gloves. I tried to crochet the gloves at first, but it was too difficult, so I gave up. Specifically because the yarn was just too big, it didn't look good. So I just painted it on, which has its own issues, seeing as there is quite a lot of movement that can be done with the hand, and it will pretty much just scratch the paint off. But whatever, it looks good now, I think. So that was it. It's done. I'm actually kind of happy with how it turned out. Not everything went according to plan, but in the end, I still think it looks pretty good. Yippee! Yay, 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 yay!